Greetings, I'm your host, Dr. Wolfula, with a review of Evil Dead the Game, developed by Saber Interactive and published by Lionsgate Games.
Hold on, gotta reload. End of the line.
Full disclosure, I was provided a free review code of the game for PS5, along with the collector's edition and a ton of Evil Dead merch. Don't worry, I won't let an Ash action figure affect my review of this game. It is really cool, though.
I wish I had my rusty chain, yo.
When Bruce Campbell was hyping up a new Evil Dead game, I was really excited. I really loved Evil Dead Regeneration, and I was hoping for another single-player Ash game.
Tear him to shreds!
Then the game was officially revealed to be an asymmetrical online multiplayer game a la Friday the 13th, Dead by Daylight, the upcoming Texas Chainsaw Massacre game, and so many other horror games out there now, and I was a bit disappointed as a guy who prefers single-player experiences, but I'll still play an online multiplayer game every now and then if it's something I like, or the gameplay appeals to me. I'm a big Evil Dead fan, so I was going to play this game no matter what, just to get some more Ash fighting Deadites. And I have to take the game for what it is, not what I want it to be. But this review will still be from the perspective of somebody who prefers single-player games, because that's just who I am. And if it's still worth it to Evil Dead fans who aren't really into the online multiplayer thing.
You'll swing it. Who's next?
First things first, Evil Dead the Game does have single-player content, a decent amount at launch for a game of this nature. Here's the catch though, you have to be online to access any content in the game, even the single-player content, which means you also need a subscription to PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live depending on the platform. But if you're PC, you don't have to worry about an extra sub, but you do have to use the fucking Epic Games launcher. Oh god, why? The reason given for why you need to be online to play the single-player content is because the entire infrastructure of the game is managed in the cloud.
You do need to be connected to the internet to play solo, because all of the parameters for everything from health to stat tracking to damage is all on our backend.
This is a pretty big catch because it means if your internet is out or if your console's online servers are undergoing maintenance or whatever, it means you just can't play the game at all. This also means that, potentially, when the game's servers are shut down eventually, the game will never be able to be played again. So your $40 purchase is nullified, or more if you bought the premium or collector's editions. None of this is good news to start things off with, but this will hopefully be patched, and setting it aside, the actual game is really good.
Okay, Carol, now let's banish evil.
Like I said, the game has a decent chunk of single-player content to start off with, and I recommend you begin with this content because it'll prepare you for the core of the game. There's a pretty helpful tutorial to play as survivors and the Kandarian demon to start off with, explaining the basic mechanics, but there's a ton of stuff that isn't explained in the tutorial, and I couldn't find a manual for this game anywhere. Remember manuals?
Does anybody have a shrimp's cola? I'm the Ash with the chainsaw on his hand. I'm coming. I need shrimp's cola. I'm about to die.
I didn't know, for instance, you could drop items until somebody asked me to drop items, and I fumbled through the menus to figure it out myself.
Thank you.
So the only real way to learn how to play this game is to play it, and the best place to start is with the missions mode. Evil Dead the Game has no campaign, not even an overarching story, disappointingly. I would have liked if there was some skippable intro to the game that explains how ashes from different eras are teaming up to fight Deadites. Maybe a rift in time and space, but no, you have to use your imagination to give this game a story. Hey, as a single-player guy, I like a good story. The closest to a story or a structure you get is the mission mode. Some of the missions are even inspired by scenarios from the franchise. Mission 1 has you give Linda's head a proper burial. Mission 2 has you throwing a party for some teens who stole the Delta. Mission 3 has you, killing demons with your bare hands for the most part. Mission 4 has you playing as Pablo trying to find Ash. And Mission 5 has you play as Lord Arthur trying to return to the Middle Ages. All fun, unique scenarios. The missions have a very basic Mortal Kombat approach to story with just these slides, but the art on the slides are pretty cool though. Regardless of the limited story, the missions are a great introduction to the combat of the game, the maps, and the various mechanics. Combat is fast and slick, allowing you to seamlessly switch between a melee and ranged weapon. If you do enough damage to a Deadite, you can trigger a satisfying dismemberment or kill, and the animations are so satisfying and perfectly capture the violence of Evil Dead.
Hold on, gotta reload.
The missions are also difficult though, even the first mission. They're a fight for survival, but are open for you to explore giant maps, and you'll need to scavenge for supplies if you want to make it to the end of a mission, which can take between 20 to even 40 minutes to complete. The frustrating aspect of the missions is that they have absolutely no checkpoints. You have to beat them in one go. If you die to a boss at the end, for instance, you have to replay the whole level from the start, which can suck if you're limited on time to play the game. So I really hope they add some fucking checkpoints to these missions, especially since characters like Pablo, Lord Arthur, and even Modern Ash are locked behind missions. There are also only 5 missions, but supposedly more are on the way. Games aren't released completed anymore, after all. What else is there for a single-player enthusiast in this game? Just the survivor mode played solo with some AI companions following you around, which is highly recommended to play a few times before you take the game online with other players. The core of Evil Dead the game is, like I said, an asymmetrical online horror game where 4 players take on the roles of Ash or a selection of other Evil Dead characters, while either another player or a bot takes on the role of the Kandarian demon, the invisible force pulling the strings of various Deadites. As these survivors, you ideally have to work as a team and survive together. You start out with a group of 4 other players thrown into one of 2 huge maps. One map, Cabin, is based on the films with the area surrounding the Nobi cabin, and the other map, Caravan, is based on the TV show adapting Elk Grove and its surrounding locations, with your first objective in each being to try to complete Professor Nobi's map within a 30-minute time limit.
Your group now holds the final piece of the map. The lost pages of the Necronomicon and Kandarian Dagger are within reach.
Once the Nobi map is completed, it will lead you to the Kandarian Dagger and the pages of the Necronomicon. In order to claim both, you need to survive waves of Deadites within their auras in a certain amount of time.
You have awakened the lost pages of the Necronomicon. Stay close and hold your position.
Once the dagger and pages are claimed, you have to fight the Dark Ones with a laser beam, I guess, while avoiding Deadites, and finally, when the Dark Ones are slain, you just need to protect the Necronomicon from Deadites for 2 minutes, and then evil will be banished. So yeah, there are a lot of steps you need to complete in order to win as a survivor, and you have to work as a team to win. So like in any other game like this, your experience playing this game is dependent on the other players you're matched up with. In one match, a teammate wandered off immediately the whole match and got himself killed. In another match, my teammates repeatedly drove over each other for several minutes. Some teammates might disconnect. If the Kandarian demon disconnects during a match, matches will end with nothing to show for it. If a player disconnects during a lobby, everyone disconnects from the lobby. These are problems, but they're mostly problems created by other players that can't be helped. But when players are on the same page of the Necronomicon, the game is great fun and feels like an authentic Evil Dead experience. There are only 2 maps to start out with, but they're huge with varied locations that are beautifully rendered and brimming with atmosphere, and to make traversal easier, there are many cars scattered across the worlds you can drive. Just don't drive too crazy or your car won't last long.
All hope is lost! Please!
The characters you play are fully voiced, and Ash, of course, is played by Bruce Campbell himself, delivering authentic one-liners.
You see that, Deadites? I created light.
But a lot of the other characters like Cheryl, Scott, Pablo, and Kelly are played by their original actors as well.
Oof. Okay, Cheryl, now let's banish evil.
As for the likenesses of the characters, the Ashes look great down to each polygon in their chins, but some of the other characters feel like they didn't have the same effort put into their faces. Annie and Scott especially don't look much like the film characters to me.
Way out in the woods with the trees and the moonlight, What girl can resist that romantic setting?
The music in the game is great. It really captures the style of classic horror music with a modern twist. I find myself humming the title menu theme a lot. That's the sign of a game having good music.
Let the blood stains your hands forever.
Gameplay in Survivor mode is fun and frantic, especially when you get a good flow going in combat. Switching between deadites to slaughter is fast and seamless. Trying out different weapons adds a lot of great variety, and each weapon has varying strengths and weaknesses, along with rareness levels.
You should have left me alone.
You can also find loot crates in the world that contain additional supplies and bottles of pink fuck, which act as experience points in this game to level up your stats, and not a drink that can kill you in real life.
I feel pretty good.
It's kind of weird. The game calls pink fuck pink F, and it also has cans of Shemp's Cola you can use to heal yourself instead of Shemp's beer. It's a bit odd. The game is filled with violence and even has a naked old demon woman, but it feels like it wanted to tone down the alcohol references.
Good old Shemp's.
The loot crates containing pink fuck can also contain special weapons, but hopefully the crates weren't sabotaged by the demon with a rogue hand, or miniature Ash doppelgangers.
I almost feel sorry for the little guys. Nah.
In addition to raising your stats, you also can use amulets to protect yourself for a limited time, but more essentially, you need to manage your fear meter. If your fear meter gets too high, you become susceptible to possession by the Kandarian demon and will attack teammates. To reduce your fear, you have to find light sources or create your own with scavenged matchsticks. Adding to the gameplay depth, each character falls under one of 4 distinct classes: Leader, Warrior, Hunter, and Support. Leaders boost the stats of their teammates, Warriors are great at melee combat, Hunters are great at ranged, and Support keeps their team healed or protected. There's an Ash in every class, so regardless of your playstyle, you can still play as an Ash no matter what. Each character also has a unique ability, with a cooldown period before they can be used again. Cheryl can heal herself, Pablo can create amulets, etc. Adding even more gameplay depth is the level up system outside of matches. When you finish an online match, you get experience points, which you can use to level up individual characters, and each time they level up, they get a skill point which can then be used to redeem one of very many skills in an expansive skill tree. This is all pretty convoluted, so find a main to focus points on, because spreading it out across multiple characters is a bit much. Survivor mode can be overwhelming, especially at first, but in essence it's a scavenger hunt, so just stick to objectives, stay with your team, and you should win easily, theoretically. It all comes down to your team, though. Even if you die, it's not a big deal, because a member of your team can carry your soul to a shrine and revive you, so don't fucking rage quit and disconnect. If you don't like the teams you end up with, you can always play private matches with friends, or invite friends into public matches with other players, which usually goes much smoother. The game itself is very polished. I didn't notice many bugs in my 15 hours playing it. Most of the issues I came across were player-generated, but I did notice AI Kelly would get stuck in a room and wouldn't move no matter how much I persuaded her.
No! You did not shoot me! No! Watch your aim!
And sometimes lighting a fire won't actually work because the animation wasn't initiated for some reason, even though it showed you holding down the button. I will say the game has some cut corners in its presentation. Characters don't have animations for entering cars. They just teleport inside after holding a button. And characters also don't speak the lines they say. Their mouths don't move at all.
Banishing the dark, one light at a time.
Which sucks some immersion out of the experience.
The devil is always waiting in the shadows.
Survivor mode is just one half of the coin to online matches, though. You can also play as the Kandarian demon, the invisible force in the woods. Of course, in order to play the demon, you're gonna have to wait a while to find a match, and that's if you're not disconnected first. Sometimes you have to wait 2 to 3 minutes before finding a match as the Kandarian demon. The demon is played primarily from a first-person perspective like in the films, gliding across the map. Though a nitpick I have is that the demon doesn't make the same cool sound effect it makes in the movies. Essentially, you act as the dungeon master of a match, summoning deadites, creating traps, possessing objects, and even directly controlling your own deadites, all to slow down or kill the survivors you're up against. In order to do any of that cool shit, though, you have to do some resource management first. Fun! You have to collect orbs of infernal energy to power all of your abilities, but you also have to unlock your abilities gradually over the course of a map, not just increase their power. But you can't start unlocking all of your abilities at first. You have to raise your threat level. It can get a little bit complicated.
Heed my counsel, and we will spill blood until the seas run red once more.
Starting out, though, you gotta find the survivors, which can be easier said than done on such huge maps. But if the survivors use cars or do other stuff to make noise, they'll eventually reveal their location, and that's where the real fun begins, summoning swarms of deadites, elite deadites, and a boss that try to ruin a survivor's day. You can play it as a real-time strategy game, or even use your energy to possess the deadites and cause havoc yourself, though unfortunately regular deadites are pretty weak and clunky, so you won't last long in a fight. But the elite, and especially the bosses, can cause some serious damage. Of course, you can't just summon stuff non-stop. You have a cooldown period, which can be a bit of a buzzkill, but it's decently balanced. Adding to the variety, the Kandarian Demon can also employ 3 classes of deadites, with classic Evil Dead villains playing the roles. Henrietta the Witch is a warlord, which can apply buffs to her soldiers. Evil Ash is a necromancer that can create a flute-playing demon that increases power of nearby deadites. And Eligos is a puppeteer that has more powerful possessions and who can cause more fear in players. Adding even more depth, each class has its own skill trees to increase using the same points you use for survivors. So hopefully you got some time on your hands.
The weak mortals have the lost pages and Kandarian dagger. Rally to the Dark Ones for our final stand!
Playing as the Kandarian Demon is intimidating at first. There's a lot to keep track of, but I feel like it's the most single-player friendly because you play it by yourself. You can't hear other players on mic, you're an invisible presence the players are unaware of, and you don't have a team, so you don't have to worry about letting anybody down but yourself. Well, you do have to hear Linda berate you for losing, which is pretty fucking annoying, but whatever.
We gave you power beyond measure, and how have you repaid us? Failure! A black mark for all eternity.
Fuck Linda.
Whatever you're doing, it's not working.
Playing as the demon is great fun when you keep in mind that even if you don't win, you still get to screw over other players along the way and essentially fill the role of a game designer, creating totally unique scenarios for your players to engage in, trying your best to challenge them and give them a fun time. There's unfortunately no mode to play as the Kandarian demon solo against AI bots, but the AI survivors are simple. They just follow you around, so the developers probably couldn't figure out how to make AI survivors work on their own against a player-controlled demon. Still, the Kandarian Demon is about creating an experience for real people ultimately, and it's a unique experience I get a kick out of more than online survivor mode. It's fun being a real cruel son of a bitch, possessing a guy, killing another guy using the possessed guy, and then running as far away as possible to spread out the dead guys and make them harder to revive. The demon can get fucked over itself, though. One time I got despawned 700 yards away from the Dark Ones after the survivors got the dagger. Well, the survivors were right next to the Dark Ones. By the time I arrived, the Dark Ones were already almost dead, which meant I basically didn't have much of a chance to win, just because I was moved so far away. Bullshit. Overall, Evil Dead the game is a good asymmetrical online horror game with solid gameplay that captures the look and feel of the franchise it adapts with some deep, unique mechanics behind it. As a single-player experience, it's seriously lacking though. So if you're an Evil Dead fan who prefers single-player games, I don't recommend the game unless it's steeply discounted or a lot more single-player content is added in later. If you're an Evil Dead fan who loves multiplayer games though, this one will be right up your alley. But this game might not have a long shelf shelf life as a multiplayer game. It will all depend on how much the developer supports it down the road. There are only 2 modes and 2 maps, which is okay to start out with, but it'll get old fast. Supposedly Castle Kandar will be added as a free DLC, but the game will need a lot more than that if it's a game that wants to stick around. Maybe they can add an S-Mart map, but how many more characters can this game add to keep interest? 3 different Rubies, maybe a Ted Raimi character, Mia from the remake, maybe series finale Ash. There's not a lot of great Evil Dead characters left to work with beyond that. What the game really could use is extra online modes. Maybe a horde mode where you and a team have to survive waves of deadites, and maybe a player versus player mode where one team of players are survivors and the other is possessed survivors that have to fight each other on smaller maps. There's a lot of potential with this game, so I hope it isn't squandered, and you know, I hope to eventually see a new Evil Dead game with a single-player campaign. I feel like you can easily take this game's combat and just put it into a Souls-like Army of Darkness game pretty easily. I'd be down for that. Still, ultimately, what Evil Dead the game has to offer is good, but it could be really great eventually. Even as somebody who prefers single-player games, I got a kick out of the gameplay ultimately, and its Evil Dead presentation. Just be aware though, if you only play single-player, there's not much here for you, and what's here in the game may not be playable someday. I give Evil Dead the game a Shem's Cola out of Shem's Beer. I really hope the next game based on a popular horror franchise we get is single-player. Pretty please!
If you liked this video, like it, and if you loved it, click the subscribe and bell buttons for more vids. I'd also like to thank these fine folks pledged my shout-out tier on Patreon for all their kind support. Videos like this wouldn't be possible without all their help. Thank you for watching, see you next time. Dr. Wolfula signing out.